Today is all about one of my favorite topics, brains. And really, it is my favorite because truly most of us underestimate this incredible tool that we have sitting between our ears. And when you learn more about your brain, you realize how much agency you actually have in your life. So if you want to live a better life, learn about your brain. And so today I am talking with my favorite neuroscientist, Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. And she has really shaped the way that I think about the work that I do in this world. And the conversation that you are about to hear was truly a dream of mine. And if you don't have them already, grab a copy of both of her books, My Stroke of Insight and Whole Brain Living, which you can find in the show notes. So hold on to your hats. We are going deep inside the brain to learn about how you can show up as your best self. And after this episode, be sure you check out Break Time, because this monthly Empowered Educator subscription will give you access to an incredible video library of self-regulation strategies, as well as monthly group coaching calls with me and other amazing empowered educators. So head on over to empowerededucator.com/resources. Remember all the passion and vision you had when you first went into teaching? Feeling like building young minds and creating community through your work would make a lasting impact on this world? Well, those days may feel like they're behind you now because you're exhausted, stressed, and overwhelmed and frustrated, but I'm here to tell you it doesn't have to be like this. In fact, the love of teaching never really went away, but it absolutely needs transformation. Welcome to the Take Notes podcast. I'm Jen Rafferty, former music teacher, mom of two, and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, and I'm here to light the way for you. In order to create a generational change for our kids, we need to shift the paradigm away from the perpetual stress and overwhelm and into a life of joy and fulfillment. This is Education 2.0, where you become the priority, shift how you live your life, and how you show up both at work and at home. So take a sip of steamy morning coffee and grab your notebook. It's time to take notes. Welcome to another incredible episode of Take Notes. I am Jen Rafferty, and today is a very special day. I am able to meet one of my heroes today. I can't wait for you to meet her as well. This is Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, and she is a Harvard-trained and published neuroscientist. In 1996, she experienced a severe hemorrhage in the left hemisphere of her brain, causing her to lose the ability to walk, talk, read, write, or recall any of her life. Her memoir, My Stroke of Insight, documenting her experience with stroke and 8-year recovery, spent 63 weeks on the New York Times nonfiction bestseller list and is still routinely the #1 book in the category stroke in the Amazon marketplace. Dr. Jill is a dynamic teacher and public speaker who loves educating all age groups, academic levels, as well as corporations and not-for-profit organizations about the beauty of our human brain. She focuses on how we can activate the power of our neuroplasticity, not to only recover from neurological trauma, but how we can purposely choose to live a more flexible, resilient, and satisfying life. And in 2008, Dr. Jill gave the first TED Talk that ever went viral on the internet, which now has well over 27.5 million views. And also in 2008, Dr. Jill was chosen as one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people in the world and was the premier guest on Oprah Winfrey's Soul Series webcast. Her new book, Whole Brain Living, The Anatomy of Choice and the 4 Characters That Drive Our Life, is a #1 release on Amazon in categories ranging from neuroscience to nervous system diseases and stroke, and on my personal bookshelf. #1. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Jill. I'm so excited to get this started.
I'm thrilled. You and I, we care about the same thing. And I think we approach it strategically very similarly and yet a little bit differently. So I'm excited about our chat. Thank you.
I would love to start actually with the last chapter of your book, which says perfect, beautiful, and whole. I would love to know why it's so important that we start from a place of wholeness.
Well, we've got all these cells in this beautiful brain. Why not use all of them? That's kind of how I'm looking at it. We know a lot about the brain. We know a lot about these cells. We know about how cells interact with one another. We know how to help them become healthy. We know how to skew away from a whole into the value structure of either hemisphere, the left hemisphere or the right hemisphere. They are very different places. They do process the same information, but in very different ways based on different values. And so the better we get to know the organ itself, and we get to know some certain things that we can understand about cellular circuitry and what we can expect from the brain cells themselves, then why not live a whole life? Why not realize that we have the capacity to choose which part of our brain is going to be dominant and how we want to feel and what we want to think, and based on our value structure?
Yeah. So learning about the brain in this way isn't typical, right? We have to seek out this information. This isn't something we're learning about in the places where we learn about things. You know, my daughter's in 3rd grade right now, and she came home and is talking to me about her nervous system, and she's using all the words, but there's not really any context for her. Right. And so there's a push for social emotional learning right now in schools where we're kind of touching on some of these things, but I don't think that we go far enough in really understanding what's happening in our brain. So I would love to talk a little bit about these 4 characters, so we kind of give our listeners a structure as to what it is we're going to be talking about for the rest of this, because we're going to be referring to these 4 characters quite a bit. So from my understanding, left thinking, identity and ego, that's character 1. Character 2, left emotional, about past pain and the stories we tell, our anxieties, our grief. Addictions, yes. Also, I've heard you mention a bridging across time.
Yeah, I mean, just consider we have a brain that we're not a living organism that is just right here, right now. I'm alive. I'm seeing things. I'm feeling things. I'm eating things. I'm saying things. I'm moving around like an amoeba. I have the capacity through this beautiful character 2, left emotional tissue, to take this present moment experience, step out of the present moment into the past. Well, how does our brain do that? I mean, that alone is like an inconceivable idea. If you really stop and you think about, at a biological level, how is it I am a bridge across time? How is it I can remember which shoes without looking, which shoes I put on this morning, and why I picked those? I have the capacity to project my mind into, what am I doing later tonight for dinner? I have the capacity to be at some time other than right here, right now. Wow. Now, if we don't look at ourselves and say, wow, that alone is pretty miraculous at a biological level, I don't know what is. I think we're just not paying attention. But yeah, it is that little character 2, emotional, that brings information in about the present moment and compares it to any experience we've had in the past, saying, give me a reason to say no. Give me a reason to push it away because it's dangerous based on my past experience. So this ends up being this little part of ourselves that, first of all, it's emotional tissue. It never matures. It's not cognitive thinking tissue. So it never matures. So it's one of my little girls inside of me. And it's the part of me that's saying, I don't feel safe. And I don't feel safe in the present because of my past experience. All my pain from the past is going to be in this little character 2. And all of my trauma from the past then is in this character 2. If you look at the tissue deep inside of that character 2, it's called the insular cortex, and that's where craving happens. Any of my addictions, I have an addiction in this moment because I have craving about something that I experienced in my past that I now bring into the present moment and say, now I want more of that. All of those experiences of the past at an emotional level is in that left emotional tissue.
Couple things I have a question about then. So when you say addictions, we're talking also about emotional addictions.
Any kind of addiction, technology, sex, drugs, alcohol, anything that I can crave and I want more of, it could be movement. You know, if you ask me what I'm a junkie of, I'm a junkie of movement. If I don't get my movement in every day, I'm more irritable. I want it.
Your character 2 is freaking out.
She's freaking out. It's like, hey, I didn't get to do anything today. I gotta move.
Right. Then let's backtrack a little bit to character 1 so we can kind of explore that a little bit, and then we'll move on to the right side of our brain. So left thinking is character 1 is identity and ego.
But let's talk about what that actually means.
Yeah.
So as we're looking at this miraculous, amazing collection of cells, I don't exist. I am this life force. I am a right here, right now, collection of 50 trillion magnificent cells that all, except for the red blood cells, contain the same DNA that began from a single cell. And that single cell then multiplied and divided, and those cells then differentiated so that I have skin cells, I have eye cells, I have liver cells, I have movement cells. I have all these different cells that make me up as a single organism. Well, I'm an organism. I'm a collection of cells. And then there's a tiny little group of cells in my left thinking tissue that says, well, now I'm going to take all of that and I'm going to define the boundaries of where I begin and where I end. Because what am I? If I'm just a cellular experience of the present moment, I'm energy and I'm cellular atoms and molecules, which are living cells just having their experiences. So then as that little character 2 steps out of the present moment and says, I now have a past and I'm going to compare everything to the past, character 1 comes online because we're feeling creatures who think. So we have the emotional tissue first, and then the thinking tissue is what makes us different from other mammals. So now in that thinking tissue, it says, okay, I now am out of the present moment. I have a past. I have a future. Let's give me an identity. And my identity says, well, where do I begin and where do I end? And how is it I know that this nose is my nose, but these glasses that stay on my nose all day long, but they're not me. Then that left thinking character 1 defines what is me and what is not me, which means it gives me an identity. And part of that identity is language cells that say, part of language now is me to be my ability to say, I am an individual. I am an identity. I am separate from you and every other atoms and molecules that are spiraling around. And the only reason I have that identity and that ego is because I have cells in that character 1 that are defining me as that. It's one thing to say, oh, it's my identity, it's my ego, but you have to look at what does that really mean at a cellular level, not just at a psychological, sociological, experiential level, but what does that mean at a cellular level? How do I have an ego? How do I have an identity? How do I have an addiction? How do I have trauma from the past?
And that how, I think, is the missing piece in a lot of the conversation about all of this. We're missing it. Like you said, we need to be paying attention. And I don't know that we're paying attention to the right things.
I think that we learn and we grow. It really took a neuroanatomist, someone who studies the anatomy of the brain, who thinks cellularly, to lose that character 1 and lose that character 2, which happened when I experienced that hemorrhage. And then in the absence of me, the individual, all that I usually think that I am is gone. What am I now? What am I in the absence of that? And because we live in a society that is skewed to dominance of me, the individual, and the world revolves around me and mine and my world and my hierarchy and where I am, and I want more because that's the value of that left hemisphere is the world revolves around me. Well, the world revolves around me only if I have a left hemisphere. If I don't have me, the individual, then what do I have? I have me, human. And that's when this consciousness of the collective whole, we are one human family. We are brothers and sisters on this planet. And everything is a symbiotic relationship. So our relationship with the planet matters because if we don't have a planet, humanity will die off. So we can't separate humanity from global because we're part of the global.
Right. So that brings us to character 3 and character 4. Once we have our listeners kind of understand what those two characters are, I do want to ask a question about why we are so focused at our left side and where society is going. But let's talk about character 3 right now. So this is the emotional part that's fun and playful and present and experiential.
Take it back to the difference between a mammal and a reptile is the addition of these cells. It's just cells. And those cells in mammals is the emotional tissue. So we end up with the emotional character 2 in the left hemisphere, And we end up with the emotional character 3 tissue in the right hemisphere. But it's still emotional. But emotional isn't necessarily my deep emotions of sadness or fear or anger or anxiety, but it is alarm, alarm, alert, alert. So we have the fight or flight in each of our hemispheres in our character 2, but it's our alarm, alarm, alert, alert as it relates to me, the individual, in my past and my future. The right hemisphere emotional character 3 is the experience of the present moment. So the 2 differences between the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere is that the right hemisphere, it's just right here, right now. Right here, right now, I'm as big as the universe. I'm atoms and molecules. I'm energy. Everything is one big fluid experience in relationship to everything else, including the planet and our environment. The left hemisphere then comes in and says, okay, well, that's great, but I'm not functional there just by there. So I need to be an individual. So the left hemisphere creates the individual, and it creates in that character 2 a past and a future. So the left hemisphere gives me, the individual across time, and the right hemisphere doesn't have me or the past and future. All it has is the present moment. So character 3 is the emotional tissue of the right hemisphere, and that is experiential. What does it feel like to be in this present moment? What does it feel like? Well, if I don't have me, the individual, so my past is gone, my job is gone because it's somewhere else, my relationships are gone because they're not right here in my face, then all my stress from my past and future is gone, and I feel pretty good. So the right here, right now experience is one of pretty much elation. Oh my gosh, I'm excited. I'm alive. And because I'm alive, then all possibility is right here, right now. So because I'm not in the box of right and wrong and good and bad defined by that left hemisphere of who am I and what color are those leaves supposed to be when I color them. In the present moment, there's no right, wrong, good, bad. There's just the experience, and there's a level of freedom. And in that freedom, I get to be creative, to just taking what is and creating something new. I get to come up with new ideas and become entrepreneurial. I get to come up with new ideas and be innovative. And I'm interested, and I'm interesting, and I'm collective whole. So I like to share it with other people, and I like to hang out with others. So all the possibilities of our creativity and our innovation is going to be right there in that character 3 of impetus, energy, and motion, free from all the rights and wrongs and goods and bads defined by me, the individual, in that left hemisphere, which also feels the need to put all of us, all of these characters, inside of the societal norm.
Right.
The right hemisphere doesn't fit into the societal norm. It doesn't care about the societal norm. It doesn't even know what a societal norm is.
Right. And that feels like such a happy place when you're describing that. That's the place where I would love to be. I wouldn't necessarily know that I got it. I would get things done, but I wouldn't know that I got things done because my character 1 wouldn't be online.
You just get different things done. But it's about the process, not the product. So we always hear this cliche, it's about the process. It's about the adventure. It's not about the destiny. It's like, yeah, but that's the difference. The right hemisphere is about the experience. I go to my art space and I don't know what I'm going to create. All I know is I'm going to go down there and I'm going to discover a new delicious piece of glass and color, and I'm going to create something new. And then I build this creation based on what comes rather than, okay, here's the pattern and here's what it's going to look like. And now I'm going to cut every piece of glass to look just like that. And then this is the perfect panel. And then somebody's going to be happy with that. And it's like, no, I'm not about that, because the right hemisphere is about the experience of what does it feel like when I'm in my art space? What does it feel like when I'm looking at these delicious, it can be the same blue, but different textures of glass. And it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, just the experience of the glass, not the, well, this is ultimately what I'm going to create.
Right. So then we go down next to the character 4. That is the ultimate collective consciousness and wholeness and divine, as sometimes people call this.
Yeah. So think about what that means, though. What that means is that I'm in the present moment. So character 3 is the experiential movement forward. There's an impetus toward action. But the thinking tissue is simply blissfully grateful that I'm alive. Oh my God, I'm alive. It's the awe and the wonder. And so it's the awe and the wonder that, oh my God, I have eyes that can see, and I have muscles that allow me to move into the world. And I have capacity to experience through these sensory systems the energy in the atoms and molecules that I'm designed to perceive and then process, because I'm filtering in raw data. And what kind of raw data am I not even capable of? Well, I'm not capable of echolocation like a bat. Wouldn't that be like cool? Well, yeah, that'd be cool. I can't fly like a bird. Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah, that'd be cool. But I don't have those capacities. So all of these different creatures are filtering different kinds of processing in order to be the creature that they are. And this human creature of what we are is this magnificent collection of all these cells that give us all of these abilities. And I can move. I mean, imagine the awe when that infant, that new infant born into the world, is just a ball of energy, right? It's just a ball of energy, and it's flailing and it has no control of anything, but every movement matters because it's information to the brain. And then one moment, infant realizes that's mine. I can wiggle those things. That's me. And it begins that process of differentiating information to get more and more specific. So I gain control of me. And all you and I are talking about now is a differentiation of those 4 different modules of cells inside of our brain that we all have. But each of those 4 groups of cells do very specific skill sets. And because of those skill sets, they represent a personality or a character inside of us that we all exhibit, all 4 of these characters. And then when I learn, oh, that joyful present moment, excitement, awe and fun and creativity, that's a group of cells in my brain. And I can become that character profile in an instant. And then in another instant, the telephone rings and it's like, oh, now I got to go to work. So now I leap into the group of cells in my character 1, rational thinking left brain, and I do that part of me. And then I find out that a friend of mine is sick or wounded or has passed. And I move into the character 2, emotional, deep emotion of, oh my gosh, someone I love who I've known for 20 years had now heard. And so I move into that part of me. And then I move into this sense of, oh my gosh, I am so grateful that I had this person in my life, and how lucky we are to be alive and to be able to connect and to be able to have this experience of being alive. So we're all already bouncing in and out of these 4 parts of ourselves. And what this material allows you to do is to choose. You have the power to choose. So if you say, okay, well, I'm busy, but I'd really like to go play. And what is that relationship like inside of your head? What is the relationship like between the part of you that goes to work and the part of you that wants to go and play in the present moment? And if that's not a healthy negotiation between those 2, then character 1's going to see character 3 as a total waste of time, right? And it's going to be resentful. And then little character 2 is going to come online and say, well, we deserve the right to have some fun. Come on, I'm not happy because I'm not having my movement. And it's like, come on, bully character 1. You need to be nicer to character 3 so we can go have some fun and be happy. We all have all 4, and this ongoing relationship is constant. So why not have some say in understanding who am I, who are the we inside of me, and what power then do I have to choose and for me to live the life that is most balanced and makes me happy?
Exactly. So one of the most meaningful exercises for me was, like you suggested, naming all 4 of these characters. So when you become better at becoming aware of what's happening right now, that makes choice easier because all of a sudden you're aware of what's going on. Oh, this is my character 1, whose name is Athena, by the way. Oh, that's my character 1. Okay, this is my character 2, kind of having a little bit of a tantrum right now. So having that removal of that this isn't you, this is a part of you, allows you to make those choices. So can you talk about that too? Because that's something like what you said before about judgment and resentment. Often those conversations happen in our heads, but they're all a part of us.
Yeah. And they're all important. So character 1 is the rational part that goes to work. For most of us, we know that part. That's okay, right? Character 3 is the little playful part. We're okay with that. Character 4 is our holy, authentic, divine self, our connection to something that's greater than we are. That's okay. The problem child, right? Is what we call character 2. But here's why character 2 exists and why it's so important to honor this little character. When character 2 is yelling and screaming, it means it's not safe. And if it's not safe, it is safe in the presence of that which is familiar. It feels scared, so it's going to fight, it's going to flee, or it's going to play dead in relationship to new things. Okay, so let's say I'm a child and I'm exposed to a lot of different people of different colors. All right. I'm brought up in an environment where it's normal for me to see African Americans, to see Asians, to see Caucasians. I get to hear a lot of different European languages or different kinds of languages. I get exposed to all these different things. Well, then my little character 2 feels safe in the presence of all of that because it's familiar. I grew up with that. But in America, we have all of this different kinds of situations going on, all these different cultures, but rarely are we actually exposed to people who are different from us. And so because of that, then I see someone of a different race or I hear a different language and I'm automatically, that's different. And my natural kickback response is I don't feel safe because that doesn't feel familiar. So at that level, we are biologically programmed to be racist, if we're going to use that terminology. And racism is I don't feel safe or comfortable in the presence of that which is different from me. Then what do I do with that? Well, then I either hide away and I pull myself away from and I make myself smaller and I constrict and I say, I don't like that. It's not familiar. I don't want it in my presence in order to protect myself. Or I realize I'm okay. I'm safe. In the present moment, I'm fine with these people who are different from me. And then naturally that character 3 and 4, which are of the present moment, it's like if I bring myself into the present moment and I see something new that is unfamiliar, then I move toward that with curiosity. The same is true for sports or for crafts or for music or for whatever. Am I even willing to explore what is hip hop? Right? Okay. That's my character 2 saying, no, I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to push it away and I'm going to call it bad because the left hemisphere has this hierarchy. And if it's going to push something away and say no, then I either become superior to that or I become inferior to that. But that's all a conversation of that character 2. So in our society, we put all this emphasis on character 2. This is where we move into the social emotional learning. Yeah. And the difference between whole brain living and social emotional learning is social emotional learning puts all the focus on the social emotional learning of character 2. And what whole brain living does is it says, when I am in that pain, yes, I can routinize into that circuitry and understand what's going on, which is important. But the thing about social emotional learning is you cannot learn about it when you're already emotionally triggered. Do you see what I'm saying? So you have to be completely advanced in social emotional before you move into the trigger. And then that's not the time to learn. What are your choices? Well, when I'm triggered, I can run my trigger. I can recognize that I think a thought, I feel an emotion, I run a physiological response. I'm now triggered. I'm lost in whatever that is. That lasts for less than 90 seconds. All right. I call that the 90-second rule from beginning to end. Now I can certainly rethink those thoughts and rerun that circuit over and over and over again for 80 years and hold a grudge against somebody. Or the power of whole brain living is I'm triggered emotionally right now. I am in my 2. How do I save myself? I don't save myself by analyzing my pain. I'm in my pain. I save myself by recognizing character 1 is right here. And I can look at character one, and character one, I can become character one, look around and say, in this moment, am I safe? Are we safe? Do we need to fix something in order to change the environment? Are we safe? We're safe. Okay. There's no bus coming at us. Character four can then come in as my most compassionate part of myself and say, I'm hurting. Little character two, you're in pain and I'm in pain and it's okay. We got you. You're not alone in here. I got you. What do you need? Do you need me to hold you? Do you need me to hear you? Do you need me? What do you need? You're not alone. Your team is right here. And then little character two is going, okay. And in the meantime, we're running the 90-second loop so that the anxiety can allow itself to actually dissipate across time because I'm no longer fueling character two's thoughts and emotions. I'm pulling the energy away from that group of cells. And as I do that, then I start to calm. I start to relax. I'm grateful that character one is there. It's like big mommy character one, Athena going to fix out things. And then I got my big character four that's going to come in and love me no matter what. And I am safe and I am okay. And then eventually little character three is going to come in and say, you want to go do something fun? Let's go outside. Let's go for a walk. Let's go look at the bugs. Let's go play in the mud puddle. Let's go get ice cream, whatever it is, right? And so the power of whole brain living is that we're not just focused on that bowl of energy of pain, but allowing the other parts to come in. And then once character two has calmed itself, then that's when we care about social emotional learning, because then it's like, okay, what happened? How do I look at that? How do I differentiate what happened? What did I hear? What was said? How did I take that? How might I learn from that so that the next time that kind of thing happens, it doesn't have the same power to do the same trigger? And that's healing. And that's why we absolutely have to have that character too. But we don't put it in, it never needs to drive the bus.
Right. And that's where your agency comes in and how you want to be in any given moment. One of the things that teachers and educators and administrators, school leaders, everyone is not feeling safe right now. These conversations are sometimes challenging because character two is the only thing that's available. People are waking up in the morning feeling activated. And then you go into these classroom situations. We've got this activated teacher with an activated child, and then it escalates and someone's in the office and then the parents are involved and then everyone stays there. So that's why I focus on the adults, because we have to start with the people who are caretaking for these children. One way, I would love to know how you start to have these conversations.
Well, just at the beginning of this week, we ended a year-long research program on training school populations. So this is administration, anybody in the school system, not the kids, teachers, administrators, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, anybody who has an interaction with a child. That's one population. We give them 3 hours of whole brain living training so that they understand what is whole brain living. We have another person training the parents in whole brain living. Each of these two populations gets hour a week for 3 weeks about whole brain living as it relates to them, what's going on with their brain. Parents have different concerns, and then they have their language, they have their concerns. Schools have their concerns. And then the last 2 hours, the last 2 weeks, we put those two groups together. So that now all of a sudden you've got a group of school, you've got a group of parents, and the entire village within which the children are living, they get whole brain living and they're understanding whole brain living. And so now it becomes a part of your common language. Someone can call me up and say, Jill, what are you doing? And I'd say, Helen, because Helen's what I call my character one. Helen's busy for the next 2 hours. And they say, okay, well, can Pigpen, my character 3, can Pigpen go for a walk with, me? And I say, yeah, I can do that at 4. Right. And now we're speaking the same language. It's like, what are you doing? How are you? How are each of these 4 characters? And it becomes a part of the culture. So you have to build this understanding and differentiation into a part of the culture, which I think the biggest difference between typical SEL programming, and you said something that I do want to address. And you said there's a push toward SEL and there's a legislative push away from SEL.
Yes, there
and
is.
that is very real right now. And there is a population in the political world that is saying, oh my God, we're brainwashing our children. And it's like, that's a miss, unfortunately, for the SEL programming. But the way around that is to do whole brain. Because if we're doing whole brain, it's not about brainwashing. It's about looking at the anatomy of the brain, differentiating the different groups of cells that have different skill sets that result in different profiles, and then encouraging people to learn how to recognize, become aware, which character am I in, which character would I like to be in, how do I get there? And then how do I create this negotiation inside of my own head? And then if you have the same language and you say to me, little Jill, are you okay? What's going on with you? And I can say, little Pigpen just stubbed her toe. She's okay, which is very different than little Abby, which is my character too. I got my feelings hurt when so-and-so said such and such, and it made me think such and such, and I took it personally and da-da-da-da-da. So I can be in my pain of my present moment, or I can be in my pain from the past, and that teacher or parent is going to manage that character completely differently depending on which part of me has been triggered. And one of my favorite examples of this is when little children, they fall down and they scuff themselves. And they're in the present moment. I just fell down. I just scuffed myself, but I'm really okay. But who's watching? Should I become my character too instantaneously and become that and then get that attention? Or is nobody really paying attention anyway? So I'm just going to get up and go play, right? I mean, we are constantly making these decisions. Why not make them consciously?
We have to make them consciously so we can change the world. You know, that's my dream in all of this, is teach people about their brain so you can be your best self with choice. You're no longer victim to your circumstances, whatever they are. And I do think it's important we talk about the political movement away from this, but you're 100% right. And this has kind of been my angle in this also. And I'm excited to learn more about the work that you're doing in schools, because when we ground it in science and biology, we're not talking about these woo-woo feelings that we have that are kind of up here and they're not really tangible. And this is actual neurocircuitry that's happening in each of our brains. And the more we can understand ourselves, the more we can show up for other people, particularly the kids that we care for in schools.
Right. Up to this point in time, focusing on emotional reactivity has been extremely important because we can identify that. And we can identify what's going on with the circuitry. You know, something happens, the amygdala is stimulated. How's it going to fight, flight, fall over and go dumb? What is my natural response? But my power is not there. Once I'm in that circuitry, I've lost my power. And so where is the power in the brain? Well, that's why with SEL, it's like, okay, well, that's when we turn on other parts of our brain. But let's be very specific about when it is appropriate to do that, when it is appropriate to learn those tools, and which other what is our game plan? What's the game plan of our whole brains team? And so whole brain living to me takes SEL to the next level. And the only reason we know this now is because a brain scientist who studies the brain at the cellular level, who thinks in circuitry like this was my everything. And my focus was, how does our brain create our perception of reality? I mean, that's a big question, right? How do these cells do what they're doing? And then to lose half the brain, the left hemisphere, lose characters 1 and 2. All I then had was character 3, when really didn't have any of that because I didn't have any energy left. So I became character 4. So I existed as character 4 and then used the energy of healing after time to bring character 3 back online. And then the right brain skill sets rebuilt the circuitry of character 2 and character 1. And then they came back on full force, and character 1 says, well, I want to take over and be the boss again. And it's like, oh, we're glad you're back, but oh my gosh, we don't want you to be the boss. And that goes to your question then about, why are we skewed to the left? Why do we have this left brain dominance? And I think part of it is because character one is so loud. It's the one that gets it done. It's busy. It's reward, punishment. It defines what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. It's the boss, and it wants to be the boss. And in our society, we've shifted to the value structure of that level of hierarchical reward. And so whether we're looking at our school system or our government, everything's a hierarchy. And we all have a position on that hierarchy. And we all generally, we're happy where we are, or we want to go higher. And that left hemisphere just wants more and more and more and more and more. It reaches a level of achievement, but then it wants more and more and more. And then it reaches a new level of achievement, but then it wants more and more and more. So it's this never ending cycle of positive feedback. I want it. I get it. I want more of it. I get more of it. I want more of it. There's no pause, but we're a biological creature. And biologically, biology functions as a negative feedback system if you want it to thrive, which means I'm hungry. I want food. I eat food and now I'm satiated and I don't want food anymore, right? And you have to have the push, I'm hungry, and then you have to have the pause. Okay, I'm satisfied now. So that push, positive feedback loop of I want more, I get more, I want more, I get more, which is what our society is skewed toward. That's our stress circuitry. So the stress circuitry of that value structure of that left hemisphere is giving us anxiety. We are at this pinnacle of really an anxiety epidemic in our society, which is just stress, alarm, alert. And that's the situation you described as what we're waking up as, and that's what's going on in the schools. And it's like, how do I break that cycle? I have to have the whole brain. I have to recognize the value of the pause.
Which is why this is so essential, because when we have this value structure, this hierarchy of our left side, what we tend to find too is people aren't actually happy there.
No,
they actually want more. They want the craving, though, of, I think, something that they don't realize they already have access to, which is the right side of their brain. And when it comes to these moments, it's like these Wizard of Oz moments, right? At the end of the movie, Dorothy's like, everything that I ever wanted was right here in my own backyard. You have access to everything you need inside of you already, but we get so lost in the story of what we think we're supposed to want or what we should be like.
Or we hook into that craving, run, I want more. And you're biologically programmed. That's part of the circuitry. I want more, whatever it is. I want more. I'm not satisfied until I get more. I don't know what you're like, but boy, if I'm going to buy ice cream, I got to get the little bitty pint because I will eat the quart, right?
Yes.
The quart, because it's just that I want more. I want more. And it's like, no, I don't really want more. What I really wanted were those first 3 bites, because those first 3 bites was where I had the experience of whatever it is I'm consuming. After that, I just want more. I just want more. I just want more.
Right. So what do we do? And I want to talk a little bit about the actual process of the brain huddle of, okay, I'm in this 90-second overload of emotional circuitry, and now what?
I think everybody needs to get to know their 4 characters. You have to know what your choices are. I mean, this book is called Whole Brain Living, the anatomy of choice, and the 4 characters that drive our life. And when we know these 4 characters, then we know the anatomy underlying our choice. And once we know that, then we can begin to recognize, what am I in now, right? Who's being dominant? Is that appropriate? Who's going to answer the question? Is that appropriate? Well, how about the rest of the characters inside of my brain? So let's say I have an appointment with you at noon. My little character 3 is going, I didn't get any movement yesterday. I got to go get some movement. So I go out in my yard and I get lost in time, right? And I'm now off in La La Land in the present moment, having a wonderful time. And then I get this inkling of a hey, what time is it? Character 1's coming in saying, hey, you got to get inside. Right. And it's like, okay, thank you. And I can create this really healthy relationship. And if I know my character 1 well enough, what's she going to do? She's going to say, okay, Pigpen, character 3, you can go play, but you're going to set your clock so that you're inside 15 minutes before you need to be there. Right. So character 1 comes in and says, Okay, I'm going to be responsible. We're going to set that time. And now it's like, go play Pigpen, go be Pigpen. Because otherwise, Pigpen's out there going, well, what time is it? Is it time to go in? Well, what time is it? Is it time to go in? And Pigpen didn't have any fun because she just spent her whole time worried that she was going to miss her appointment. Well, why not have the Helen part of my brain say, we're going to take care of that. We're going to set a little alarm. Everything's going to be good. So you create these relationships between these different characters, and they work together, and they're constantly negotiating everything so that you can really be whatever you are. I tell people, I don't mind if you're miserable, as long as you remember to enjoy being miserable. Oh my gosh, character 2 is capable of being miserable. It's so beautiful. There's nothing like being miserable. There's nothing like being angry. There's nothing like being sad. There's nothing like being lost in grief. Thank goodness we all have that capacity. I don't want to cut that out and never experience that. That's the difference between me being alive and me being 6 feet under. I'm not 6 feet under. I want to have my emotions, but run them for 90 seconds and then move on.
And then decide.
Take control. You have power. We have so much more power over what's going on inside of our brain than we were ever taught.
Yes. And that's the skill set that I want everybody. And I know that this is why you do your work too. And I know that you've said this is why you wrote the second book. You know, the first book was beautiful. And I think there was some of that reflective piece, but this is very explicit that this is about everybody. And it isn't just your story. This is everybody's story. And there's so much beauty in that. So I want to be really explicit about how we do that brain huddle that you're talking about to get the characters talking to each other. You have this beautiful acronym of BRAIN. Can you go through that so our listeners can understand exactly, like, what do I do?
Right. First thing you got to know is you got to know who's who inside of you, right? You got to know that. So study your 4 characters. In this book, there's a chapter on each of the 4 characters. You get to know the skill sets. You get to know what it feels like inside of me. I encourage you to put yourself in those situations so you know what it feels like inside of you. Well, how does your character 1 hold your body? What kind of voice does it use? You know I'm Helen because I have earrings in. As soon as I'm off this, man, earrings are out. Pigpen does not wear earrings, right? So I'm going to change my shoes. I'm going to change my clothes. It's just a whole different character inside of me. So get to know your 4 characters and then think about, well, it's not just characters inside of me. It's my relationship with others. Who do I call when I'm Helen? Or who calls Helen, my character 1, because they want to get something done? My friends can call me up on the phone and Helen answers the phone because Helen answers the phone. And my friends will say, oh, hi, Helen. Can you call us back later this evening? And what they're really saying is, hi, Helen, would you have Pigpen call us later? And Helen will say, yeah, I'll do that. And I'll put it on my list. I'll make a note, right? Because that's what Helen does. She makes to-do lists and she gets it done. And so then later in the afternoon when I'm walking or I'm, done working, it's like, yeah, now I'll call my friends back and then we'll chat and we'll have a completely different conversation. So the brain huddle is, once you know all these different characters, then I encourage people to literally practice doing a brain huddle 20 times a day, at least 20 times a day. And that means every time you think about it, you do it. And that's important because you're going to be your 4 different characters throughout the day. Let's say character 1 is busy and at work. And so character 1's going to probably say, put the clock on and say every hour on the hour, ping me, and I'll do a brain huddle. So character 1, it's rational, it's organized, it's busy, it's on the list, it's a brain huddle. And so character 1 comes in and says, okay, we're going to do a brain huddle. Character 2, little Abby, are you okay? Are you here? And little Abby's going to go, it's going to feel, right? Yeah, I'm good. I'm okay. And the important thing about doing that when I'm not in my pain is little Abby, little character 2 isn't only when I'm unhappy. Little character 2 is always there. So I want to nurture this part of myself and let her know character 1 cares. Character 3 cares. Character 4 cares about Abby when Abby's not throwing a fit. So that when Abby is throwing a fit because she's run up against some pain and resistance, she knows these other characters have a relationship with her no matter what. So Helen can call on, okay, we're going to have a brain huddle. Character 3, how are you? And Pigpen's going, yeah, I'm good, because I know you're going to be done in 20 minutes and I get to go play. I get to go do something fun. I'm happy. And then little character 4 is always good. I mean, character 4 is just grateful for being alive. Character 4, are you here? And allow yourself to feel that deep sense of gratitude that, oh my gosh, I have eyes that can see. I have legs that can move me around. And I'm alive at all. I have bladder capacity. Oh my gosh. Now, I've been with you for about an hour. It's like, oh my God, I have bladder capacity. So character 4 is going, yeah, I'm good. And then character 3, let's say I'm out playing or I'm in the art space and I'm in everything I love. And it's like, yeah, now's a good time for a brain huddle. So it's like, huddle. And then it's like, Helen, are you good? And Helen's going, yeah, I'm good. And Pigpen, you just go have fun. And I was like, Abby, are you good? And Abby's going, yeah, I'm not irritated. Right. I'm not dysregulated. I'm good. 4, I call mine Queen Toad. Queen Toad, you good? And Queen Toad's going, yeah, little Pigpen. You're just so good. And so that's the huddle where you're getting these 4 together. So the brain stands for B, and any of them can call this. B is breath. Why do we always focus on breath? Whether we're doing meditation, whether we're doing prayer, whether we're doing mantra, whether we're doing yoga, we go to the breath because the breath is in the present moment. And the ultimate goal is to bring your mind to the present moment, because right here, right now is a pretty perfect moment. Right? Whatever happens in the present moment, we bring all of ourselves into the present. We can handle it. We're amazingly powerful. So B stands for breath. Bring your mind to the present moment. Breath. Okay. I can change. It's like a train running on a track. I can change the amplification and breathe deeply and exhale deeply, or I can change my frequency. I have manipulation of air, breath in the present moment. So bring your mind and start messing with your breath for a moment. And then you're right here, right now. B, R is recognize which of the 4 characters called the huddle. Did Helen put it on the clock? Okay, thank you, Helen. Was it Abby? I'm not happy. I need a huddle. You guys, I need a huddle. Was it Pigpen? Oh, yeah, let's have a huddle. Everybody, let's have a huddle. Recognize who called the huddle. You appreciate the fact that no matter who called the huddle, we're all here. There's 4 of us, right? So B, breath. Bring your mind to the present moment. R, recognize who called the huddle. A, appreciate there's 4 of us. A, I, inquire. Okay, well, who do I want to be now? In the next moment, the collective whole, who do we want to be? Now, this becomes really important because let's say I have an opportunity to turn into my character 2 and bite you back because you're in there biting at me, poking on me. Your anxiety is driving me insane. You're being mean to me. And I can just I get to choose. Do I want to come back as a character 2 and bite you back? Well, 2 character 2s will never find a resolution. So do I want to step into my character 4 and just kind of support you and love you from afar, not get triggered by you? Do I want to bring character 1 in order to fix something? Do you need fixing? Do you need me to do something? Does Pigpen want to come and say, oh, come on, Jen, don't be like that. Let's go play. And then you get to choose, inquire. And then N stands for navigate. Navigate moment by moment by moment, because what might be appropriate in this moment? It's like, come on, Jen, let's go play. And then the phone rings and then it's like, oh, so sorry, Helen's got to come in, right? Because, business. But it's this ongoing negotiation of consciousness between these 4 different parts of who we are. And the more often you do the huddle, the more it begins to run on automatic. It becomes a natural. What you start with purposely trying to do 20 times a day, circuitry. Circuitry is neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain cells to rearrange who's communicating with whom so that we have the power to choose new circuitry. But you can't choose what you don't already have. So that's why you have to work on it at the beginning in order to establish new habitual patterning inside of the brain cells so that when I am really considering getting really angry at you, instead, I can say, okay, do I really want to fight with my brother right now? Or do I want to maybe go get something done upstairs in the office? Or do I want to go play? Or do I just want to sit here and wrap him in love and say, he's got 90 seconds to run through that nasty loop. And then if I'm lucky, he'll pick something different because I'm not fueling his 2 with my 2. That's the power of who we are.
It's so powerful. And, when people start stepping into their power like that, that's how we make change.
Oh, changes everything.
Everything. How do we do this more? That's what I might want to know. As we're getting to the end of this podcast, I want to know what now? What is the next step that people listening, that teachers can do today to really start this new path?
Well, get to know your 4 characters. Take it seriously. Thank you, first of all, for this podcast, because you're bringing this material to a very specific group, which is the school system. The research program that we've been running, we've got over 1,000 people who have participated in the program, and now we're doing the data crunch. And there's no question that this material is going to show a positive long-term impact. And then it's Whole Brain Living. Look for it. It's a wonderful book. It's on audiobook. I read it. I'm equally as enthusiastic there as I am here, but it's beautiful material. And I just think we have this magnificent, beautiful brain. Why wouldn't we want to be able to capitalize on making ourselves content and happy and whole? Especially, this is a population of people who's reaching out to other people, children. And the thing about children is when the school program is going on, and you can always write to me more about possibly becoming a part of this. I don't know what they're going to do because I'm separate from the research. I advise, but I'm separate from that data. But they're going to be hearing more and more about whole brain living because it takes social emotional learning. It takes psychology. It takes neurology, neuroscience to the next level of really integrating what do we know about the brain? How can we differentiate better using this beautiful organ? And the thing about the 4 characters is you can say to a group of kids, okay, here's character 1, character 2, character 3, character 4. Here are the skill sets. Now, let's think Harry Potter. Who's the character 1? They'll tell you. Hermione. He's a little academic, right? She's always doing the research. Who's character 2? They'll tell you. Who's character 3? They'll tell you. Who's character 4? They'll tell you. The younger kids, SpongeBob. Who's character 1? They'll tell you. They get this. Kids get this. The biggest difference between children that we've been noticing between kids getting this material and adults is that kids are not as attached to holding on to their character 2 for as long. They let it happen. It hits them hard. They run the cycle. And then it's like, okay, well, I might be mad at you for another round or another loop, but I'm more apt to give that up because I'm going to go do this and play some kickball now and be my character 3. So the adults, as we become older, we become more rigid in that pain and we hold on to our pain tighter and our trauma. And then as we get older, if we use psychoanalysis, and we focus on the trauma, then we're giving all the energy to the trauma. And the difference between whole brain living and these other programs is I value that trauma and I want to explore that trauma, but not while I'm in the trauma. I don't have to re-traumatize myself to understand what it is I'm supposed to gain or learn because of that trauma so I can heal that trauma. Character 2 is not going to heal their own trauma. Characters 1, 3, and 4 or the power that's going to help us separate ourselves from the pain so that we can actually analyze that pain using that character 1. We can love ourselves through that trauma as our character 4, and character 3 can help us realign how we're viewing that trauma with curiosity.
And we're not dismissing our characters either, which is what I think sometimes some of these programs do. It's we'll sprinkle some glitter and rainbows on it.
Right.
We ignore and dismiss the feelings in an effort to just think positive. And that makes it louder.
Exactly right. Because it is the character 2 that is our learning. I don't like it. I've seen it before. I'm going to push it away. Well, character 1 can come in and say, it's another time. That was 3 years ago when that happened. We're safe now. That little dog that bit you 3 years ago, every time you see that same kind of dog, it's a different dog. So let's have the pain. We understand. Every time I see that dog, I get scared. So I don't like dogs. And then character 1 comes in and says, but that was one experience. And we're not 3 years ago in that. And so we can step beyond that and realize that what we've done is we've said, because I had a bad experience with one dog, I don't like any dogs. And it's like, no, look at it. Let's come to the present moment and see, look at all these nice little dogs. These are nice little dogs. And so I can grow. But the only way I can grow is to let the other parts of myself come in and nurture that out so that character 2 can learn. Otherwise, character 2 is just going to keep screaming every time she sees a dog.
Right. And that's a beautiful example of that. I'm just so glad to hear this coming from you to this audience. It's so important. And I hope right now everyone at the end of this goes to the show notes, clicks on all of the things where all of the websites are going to be and the links to Dr. Jill books. And I am certainly interested in learning more and more about how I can share this message to the people that I work with. So thank you so much for the work that you do and the time that you took to be with me today. It means the world to me.
Happy. Thank you. And thank you, everybody.
And if you enjoyed today's episode, which I'm sure you all did, make sure you subscribe and write a nice review. And I'll see you next time on Take Notes.
Incredible, right? Together, we can revolutionize the face of education. It's all possible, and it's all here for you right now. Let's keep the conversation going at Empowered Educator Faculty Room on Facebook.